Real talk, real topics. Real talk, real topics. In an hour five, all that borderland. El Paso. Got that you go love. Real talk, real topic.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Real Talk, Real Topics. Today's episode is going to be a good one. We have a very special guest today. I'm very excited to have this discussion with him on this topic, fathering from behind bars. But before we get into our topic, for those of you that don't know what Real Talk Youth Impact Program is all about, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization that takes ex-offenders like myself, people willing to share their stories with our troubled teens out here in this community. We also have a parenting class that goes along with it. It's 3 classes for child and for parents upon graduation. If the children fit the criteria of a 2.0 grade point average and volunteer hours, we do provide a $150 allowance per month per activity if funding is available. There obviously is a lot more that goes with Real Talk. We also have a leadership program, and we're going to have an entrepreneurship program coming up as well, together with Junior Achievement League. But for now, we are with Real Talk, Real Topics. We're trying to keep Real Talk alive, trying to keep our name out on the streets, and what we do impactful and relevant to today's times. So today we have a very special guest. His name is Raymond Torres, and Raymond Torres is Raymond, you're on live with us right now. Raymond is a Real Talk Youth Impact member, speaker, volunteer, as well as an award-winning author on a book that he wrote called The Chauffeur, From Federal Prison to Celebrity Chauffeur, a tale about second chances. And here he is today. Ray, go ahead and introduce yourself to us. Give us a little background about yourself and why it is that you are with Real Talk.
Well, thank you. I want to thank you for having me on the show, Julian. The working with at-risk youth has always been a passion for me, especially growing up as a troubled youth, and getting involved. Of course, I was in the prison system for 18 years, and that's where I started getting involved with the programs within the federal prison system. They had youth impact programs. They had one at FCI Phoenix. They had one at Atwater, and so that's when I initially started getting involved. And I realized that, you know what, these kids need somebody that's actually going through or been through the same things that they've been through. And it's been a passion in my heart to work with kids. And once I got released, I was asked if I could get involved in a program called Real Talk here in Las Vegas. By a former U.S. probation officer. She began a program here in Vegas, and when she asked me if I was interested, there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted to be a part of it, and I've been doing it ever since.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being a part of something so amazing, Ray. I've taken it upon myself, my wife and I, to bring it down to El Paso because the same reason we think it's an awesome program. It's all about family, not just the youth. In our title it says Youth Impact Program, but I believe we're more of a community impact program, family impact program. With what we do with what we share with the parents and with the kids. Now, Ray, getting into today's topic, which is fathering from behind bars, and the reason I chose you for this topic for our conversation is that I know you did a lot of time. You did 18 years, and during your catch or during the time that you got caught up, you had your oldest son was 5 years old, and then you had 2 younger daughters who were 4 and 2. Now, being away for 18 years, Ray, what were the challenges of remaining a good father and remaining in their life and keeping some kind of consistency through everything that we go through in prison?
Well, first, I think I want to mention the part that when you're involved in criminal activity, you know, when you're involved in that type of lifestyle, in the back of your mind, you know that sooner or later there's a chance that you could either get killed or incarcerated. And when you come into the federal system, those who know about the federal system, you know, they give out long sentences. And you're either gonna, I always tell people, you're either gonna betray the people that you're working with in your criminal activity, or you're gonna betray your family, because that's a choice you're gonna have to come up with when you're facing 20 years. And I betrayed my family, and
Yep.
it was a very hard pill to swallow, especially seeing my kids come to visit me at a young age, being in the visiting room where my son wanted me to come home with them, knowing that I'm not coming home, him wanting to stay with me. So that was a very, very, that was a lot of things to deal with at the time, especially when I was looking at a sentence of 20 years. That being said, you know, it's an eye opener.
Yeah.
You start, most people, not all people, most people tend to put their priorities in order, and they start looking at their whole life. They step back and they make changes. And for me, it was immediate. I started writing letters to my kids as much as I could. I had planned visitations. You know, my sister, which was a big part of it, you know, she would always bring my kids to see me. So, you know, I thank her for that. I would phone calls. You know, there's limited phone calls. You only get so many minutes per month. I would make phone calls, whatever they needed. I try to provide for them, even in prison, financially also, but more importantly, emotionally. I was trying to be that voice. You know, I was trying to be that voice to them, and it's not easy for them because I wasn't there physically, and
Right.
there was a lot of challenges.
So let me ask you this. I know when a lot of us go into prison, because I've been to a lot of prisons, done a lot of time. There's a lot of guys that go in there, and women as well. I've never been in a female prison, so I won't speak on that aspect of it. But we go in and we think that it's easier for us to forget about the outside world, right, than to stay connected, right? And it seems like it's harder to stay connected to the outside world, and it's easier to forget about it and just stay engulfed in prison life, prison politics, and everything that happens, right? But when we do that, we're affecting more people that way, keeping ourselves away from them, because obviously through fathering from a distance, even through a phone, I feel that that's better than not having any connection at all, right? So you saying you had, you know, I know we get 300 minutes a month in the BOP to call our family, and you prioritizing that. Now, putting your kids first and your and your family first, did that deteriorate any other relationships that were somewhat hanging onto a string? Because we all know when you go to prison, everybody falls off on you. But did that kind of shift where you were headed, and then did it help you through your prison sentence?
Well, when I first came into the system, you know, my kids were pretty young, so you know, at that age, they don't want to be on the phone that long. So, you know, I try to talk to them as much as I can. Like you said, the relationships, when you're looking at 20 years, yeah, you're lucky if you even got family members still hanging on. So
Yeah.
the people that are in your circle, they're falling out one by one, definitely. But as far as affecting other relationships, the ones that are going to be there, that are going to be there. I mean, I was down so long, people dropped out of my life and came back in. So I mean, that just, you know you've been down a long time when stuff like that happens. But my priority is, even though my kids, you know, they have a whole different point of view. You know, they, me not being there, you know, of course they're bitter, they're angry, their dad's not there. My oldest daughter, Alexis, and you know, I mean, I had letters from her that, you know, reading them just brings me in tears, because she would tell me, you know I have a father that cares about me, that loves me, that wants to be there, but he can't be there. And it's heartbreaking, you know, especially when you realize, like, I messed up, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
I made a mistake. I was first time nonviolent drug offense. Do I deserve to be sentenced to 20 years for this first time nonviolent drug offense? And obviously the government and the laws of the land, and they seem to think that. So
Yeah.
but there is consequences. When you don't think about, one thing I have to say, if you're going to commit a crime, look it up and
Yeah.
figure out how much time you're going to get. Because I'm not saying do it, but at least you know what you're getting into.
Yeah. You know what risk is.
Consequence, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't know that. I mean, I figured if I got in trouble, I get 5 years. No, I never thought I'd get 20 years. I was 26 years old, so getting sentenced to 20 years, 19 years, 7 months, it was like a life sentence for me. I
And
barely lived 26 years.
and you having girls, right? You had two little girls when you went
Hmm.
in. How hard was that when they became teenagers, right? And the visiting, were they coming to visit? You mentioned earlier your sister was a big part of them coming over to see you. Um, so did you have like a faulty relationship with the mother of your children, and she wasn't really trying to cooperate in that sense, and your family had to step in? How was that whole dynamic?
I was well, when I got arrested, I was divorced. I have two kids. I have a son and a daughter, Ray Jr. and Alexis from my ex-wife, and then I have a daughter, Serena, from the girlfriend that I was seeing. But I was living a wild lifestyle at that time.
Yeah,
I was selfish. I was thinking about me. So it's understandable that that people move on. Okay, I blame myself because nobody put me there but myself. As far as the relationship, everybody was all okay with the kids coming to see me and visitations, and everybody did their part where I was able to see the kids. So I didn't have any issues about me being allowed to see my kids. So that, I thank God for that was a good thing.
not, and as they became teenagers, were they coming on their own? Were they asking to come see you, or was it like the visits became further and far in between?
You know, it was a bumpy road all the way through.
Yeah,
There was times where there was, a lot of connection, a lot of love. There was times where especially my oldest daughter, she didn't want to talk to me. They had that anger, that bitterness that I wasn't there, that I wasn't raising them. There was times where we wouldn't talk for months, and I've been called every name in the book by her, and I still love her. She's my daughter. We still bump heads once in a while, but it's understandable that there's frustrations, there's anger, there's bitterness that develops because of knowing that it wasn't their fault. They didn't do this. Why should they have to go through this?
yeah,
Why was my father irresponsible? Why was my father
exactly.
making the choices for my life? So these are the things that go through their mind, and it's understandable. And I remember one year I was it was Father's Day. So they're older now. They're older. They're able to travel on their own. And it was Father's Day. I was at Terminal Island Federal Prison, and I was waiting for a visit, and half of the day was already over, and nobody showed up. So I decided to go to my bunk, and my bunkie was Speedy from San Diego, and I said, you know what, I'm not getting a visit. He's like, man, just hold on, you're gonna get a visit, man, just relax. I said, nah, I'm not getting a visit. So I laid down, and it seemed like I laid down for an hour, but I got a phone call. I mean, the guard came in, I'm sorry, and woke me up and says, hey, Torres, you got a visit. So I show up to the visiting room, and I see my son, Ray, and my daughters, Alexis and Serena, and they're there. I thought my sister brought them. So I'm like, hey, where's your aunt? Is she in the bathroom? They're like, no. So my daughter Alexis arranged everything where her and my son took a bus, a Greyhound bus from Las Vegas, and they met up with my other daughter Serena, who lives in California, and they all visited me on Father's Day. And I was like,
Nice.
wow, I mean, that was like one of the best Father's Days, and that showed me how, a lot of love toward my kids, even though I put them through so much. And the thing is, don't ever give up on your kids. Even, I don't agree on everything they say to me or the way we treat each other at times, but at the end of the day, I still love them and they're my kids, and I'll do anything for them.
So let me ask you this, Raymond. Now that you've been out, and how long have you been out now?
I've been out. I got released April 5th, 2011. So I've been out for a little while now.
Congratulations. Real quick
Thank you, brother.
before I forget, it just popped in my head. Today is Gordon Watt's birthday. Happy birthday to our brother
No,
Gordon.
Gordon Watts. Happy birthday, Gordon
Yeah,
Watts, my
happy
brother.
birthday.
He's a good
So
brother.
let me ask you this right now that you've been out this long and you did the whole fathering thing from prison. Sounds like you did a good job. Um, I think what a lot of people don't understand is it's hard to maintain a positive attitude. It's hard to have that love when you're on the phone with your kids after being in prison, living in the situations that we're living in, dealing with the daily drama, daily politics, watching your back. Be careful where you walk. Be careful what you say. Dealing with all that, and then calling home, and you're in a good mood, but then your kid picks up, right, and they're crying or something's wrong, and you just had a bad day in prison. Something really bad just happened, right? How do
Right.
you
Somebody cut.
find?
Somebody
Yeah,
cut.
yeah. How do you find the positivity inside of you to still be a good father? Because there's a difference between you can father, you can try to be a dad, but there's a difference between being a good dad and a bad dad. So how do you find the good advice while you were in there and dealing with all that, man, and being incarcerated 18 years? It, it can make a person bitter.
You know what? There's a you go through all those emotions when you're first incarcerated. You're in denial. There's anger. There's rage. You just want to go off. You just want to hurt somebody. You just want to go on a rampage. And then there's the other little angel on the other side that's saying, Ray, you still want to go home to your kids. You
Yeah,
got your whole life ahead of you. And I credit, I give credit to God for a lot of,
amen.
having his hands over me, because God put some people in my life that had 300 years, that had life sentences, that were never getting out. These are the people that were around me in prison, and they used to call me the short timer.
Yeah,
So that when you put it in that perspective, they're like, these guys are never going home, never seeing
ever.
daylight at all.
For
So
those that don't know, life in federal prison means it's not 25 and then parole. It means you leave in a pine box. That's what
yeah,
life
yeah,
sentence in federal prison is.
right. And so, when you put things in that perspective, when I started realizing that, I cannot blame anybody else for this but myself, because and then when I started kind of rationalizing that if I was to be charged for everything I've ever done,
Yeah.
every criminal activity I would never be getting out of prison.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, like, okay, 20 years is a slap on the hand for everything I've ever done in my life that
Yeah.
I should have never done. And that kind of helped me balance things out. And then, but dealing back with the kids, I wanted to be different. I wanted to learn about being a parent. So luckily, some of the institutions that I was at, they had parenting classes,
Good.
parenting from behind bars. They had mental health classes.
Yeah.
They had counseling. They had, and so some of those believe it or not, I was totally against counseling. In the streets, I remember my
Yeah.
ex-wife wanted to go to counseling. I'm like, you know what, screw counseling. I'm not going to let some shrink. But you know what? Now that I went through my incarceration, I actually went through counseling. I took a 9-month residential drug treatment program. And you know
RDAP.
what? RDAP. I took
Yeah.
RDAP.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it helps if you apply it. If you're not going to apply it, if you're just there going through the emotions, that's a whole, that's a whole different story. But I wanted to be a different father. I read the book, The Five Love Languages. I mean, I wanted to learn more about being there, being for my kids emotionally and financially and the whole package.
Yeah.
So I did my part as far as trying to learn as much as I can. Am I perfect? No, I'm not. I'm still learning. So
Yeah. I think we all are as parents, right? There's no manual for having a kid. Um, but I think a key part of that is relationship with your child, communication. I personally was the shittiest father from prison. I had just gotten custody of my son 3 weeks before going to prison, and so my mom had him for the 2 years that I got violated for in the new charge.
mm,
and I didn't call home. I didn't worry about him. And now that I've grown up, because I got incarcerated. I was 17 when the Fed started their case on me, and they waited till I was 18 to arrest me because you can't get
Hmm.
arrested unless you're 18 by the federal government, right? And I had that mentality still of a kid, and I think people forget that when you get incarcerated, the world stops. Everything that whatever trajectory path you were on, it stops, right? And you go and you get put into this new society, this new world, and you're learning and you're learning to live in there, but you're not growing up like everybody else is in the outside world. You're not learning responsibility. You're not learning getting your first apartment. You're not learning what it is to open a bank account. All of these things, right? So then when you get out, you're really childish. So when I got out for 3 weeks and I took custody of him and I went straight back, I totally forgot about him. And I was the most horrible, horrible person for that. So Raymond, now that you've been out and you've been there physically and you've tried from a distance, would you say that you can still father from a distance successfully? Or do you think being there physically hands-on is definitely always going to be the best way?
Well, being there physically is definitely the best way, but I'll tell you what, if if a person's incarcerated and they made a mistake and they're willing to turn that life around and be a part of their kid's life, I mean, they will remember that you were trying to reach out to them. Write letters, write letters, express yourself, communicate, because at least they have those letters that they will go back and they will read over and read over and read over, and just the thing is express that love, the love you have toward them, even though you don't agree on everything they're doing. The hardest part you had mentioned is having daughters, especially having
Yeah.
another man raise your
Oh yeah.
daughter, and you don't know that man,
Yeah.
and your daughter could be telling you one thing, and that one thing you might it might anger you,
And you go
and
stab somebody.
you're gonna do something to somebody, or you're gonna make a phone call and send somebody to go do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And the thing is this: there's always two sides of the story. Of course, you always want to listen to your kids, and you want to make sure you want to follow up, but always do your research, because there was times where a couple of things almost happened in my situation where later on down the years later I found out it was a whole different story,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, what if I would have did something about this, and then that wasn't even the case.
Yeah.
and and then there's times where there were situations in my case where it was true, where there was things where they're not getting along and whatever, but always do, never act on impulse is what I'm trying to say, because a lot of things could go wrong, but always, if something's happening with your kids, and I do follow up, make sure that that they're okay. You want to make sure that they're in a safe environment.
Yeah.
um, but one of the sad things that I see today is that fathers fathers who have kids and they're out here on the street, and they have great young kids, whether it's a son or a daughter, and but they're choosing drugs
Yeah.
over being with their kids. To me, that is heartbreaking. It's like, wow. And some of the kids that we meet in the programs, I mean, some of these kids are great kids, and and you're like, well, how can and it's just some people they choose to do that, and
Yeah.
it's sad.
So now that you're home and you've been out and you've been getting back to life, getting back to your kids, getting back, obviously they're older now. You
Right.
mentioned your grandfather. So are you
Hmm.
making up, because we can never make up for lost time? That's one thing I think we think as inmates when we get out, like, I'm gonna hit it hard because I'm gonna make up for everything. You can never make up for what's gone is gone, and what's in the past is in the past. It no longer exists. It's not there. You can never go back there. But with your grandchildren, now are you doing everything you wished? And now that you've learned and you've become a man, right? A real man, and you've experienced everything, are you taking advantage of your grandkids and being the best grandpa and being the kind of grandpa that you wish you could have been father?
I would like to believe so. When it comes to my kids, I like I said, I have a my son Ray is He's 30. Alexis is 29, and Serena is 27. And I have 7 granddaughters. 7. So
Nice.
I am blessed. I am blessed when I take them with me. I look back and I thank God because I do whatever they want to do. I do. I'm like, you know what? What do you guys want to do? Let's go somewhere. Let's plan something. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it don't. But I try to put them first. Unless I'm on a work detail where I have to reschedule something. But I always try to put them first. I have a grandson also, Damien. And you know what? To me, it's they are my priority. My kids are my priority. Also, they're adults, though. A lot of times, they're doing their own thing. But whenever I have an opportunity to spend time with my grandkids, I jump on it. Um,
Nice.
and let me mention one thing. When I first came home, transitioning and facing your children after all those years that you're away, it is hard. Um, my son, he wasn't on the best path that he could have been. He was making a lot of mistakes. I was making mistakes as far as not knowing how to handle this our new relationship and trying to make it better. But I never verbally abused him, saying, you know what, you need to do this, you need to do that. I tried to lead by example. So when I was released from prison, I was starting over. I was in my 40s, sleeping on the couch at my mom's house.
Wow.
But you know what? It was I was happy to be free. I had no
Yes.
problem transitioning into society. I started working quick. I started working at a luxury transportation company, and my son, I would like to believe he saw my actions. He didn't see my words. He see my actions.
Yeah.
And then one day he came up. He came to me and he says, "Dad, can you give me a job?" I says, "I'll only get you a job is if you're serious and if you're gonna really, give it 100%." And I got him a job, and he's been there ever since. He became manager, and he's doing good.
Nice.
I mean, so it's the thing is like, we can tell our kids what to do, or we can show them what to do, as far
Yes.
as being a leader. And I chose to lead by example. And I'm still taking classes. I'm still learning. There's so much in life that a lot of people don't understand. Once you get your life back, your freedom back from being sentenced to 235 months, for me, I can't speak for everybody else. It was like, you know what? Okay, the sky is the limit now. Let me
Yeah.
let me live life to the fullest, the right way, drug free, crime free, and let me make. Now I know that okay, we're all here for a reason. Let
Yes.
me let me live. Let me walk that road, that path that God put me here for, to change lives. And
Amen.
sometimes I'm changing lives to make them angry. It happens, but let me do it in a positive way. And so for me, is like I try to live by that. Sometimes I need a little tune up, and I need to get back on track. But and God reminds me every once in a while. But but the thing is that we're leaders in the eyes of our kids and our grandkids and our community and those around us. And there is that light shining in darkness.
Yeah.
And so I try to be that light, amongst my kids and my grandkids.
Now, what do you think is the effects? Because you've seen it firsthand, right? Father absence when a father is not around in the home. Um, we talked about you being a part of your child's life, through the phone, through visits. But what effects did you see they had from you being absent, as far as physically being there at home? Because it's different. You know what? When we're in prison, we think our family just goes to school and work and home, and then that's it, right? And then once we get out, because we're like, man, how come they haven't wrote me a letter? It's not that hard to write me a letter. It's not that hard to go put money in the account. But then once you get out, and then we stop living the way we did before, and now we're living like our wives and our friends responsibly, going to work, and then we don't have time to write somebody a letter or send somebody a bank note to go
Right.
put some money on their account, right? So then you
Right.
realize, man, at least I did, was like, I can only imagine what all my mom and my sister were going through. while I
Right.
was in there just chilling, playing handball, lifting weights, smashing on fools, and smoking joints, and doing, doing prison life, and they're out here doing real life, right? And it's a whole lot different picking up the phone 15 minutes than being there at home when they get home, right? So, what were the effects that you saw firsthand from your absence in the home from your kids?
Well, of course, when you're being raised by one parent, um, kids tend to get into mischief, and they don't. And when it comes to schooling, when it comes to education, that all that stuff starts drifting. So I see that there was an issue there that when you got one parent that's working to provide for the kids, there's no time for there's not much time to sit down and help them do their homework. And I take my hat off to the women that do, because I know women that do that, and I give them props for that. I give the
Yep.
men that are single fathers that work their butt off all day, and they come home, they spend time with their kid, and they sit down, they do homework with them. Um, but there is a difference as far as the father not being there, and the kids, they tend to talk back, and because there's not that father figure. There's the mother. The mother could still put the smack down with the chancla, but it's different when you got the father. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's different when you got the father there, and being that leader, and having that stern voice, and being like, no, this is what it is. Don't, you're not going to be that disrespecting your mom.
Yeah.
And so I did see a difference, but um, so it is important that both parents are there, even if the man and the woman are not together. It's still important that both parents are a part of their lives raising them, because it does affect the kids' lives, and I've seen it firsthand. Um, I've seen it growing up. I mean, my parents were both there physically, but they weren't
Okay.
there. For me, they weren't there emotionally. And I love my parents. I love my dad passed away when I was incarcerated and when I was in FCI Phoenix. My mom's still alive. She's here in Vegas, and I love her to death. But these are things that parents make mistakes. They don't. There is no manual telling you how to
Yeah.
raise a kid. So everybody's learning on their own as they're going along. And I don't blame anybody for my past or for how I was raised. I think it all happens for a reason.
So now to get into some more juicier stuff, right? You said you got arrested at 26, right?
Hmm.
And what was your life before 26? Were you involved into the street life and all that? And don't get into too much detail. We're gonna talk about your book, and I know that a lot of this stuff is on your book, so I don't want you to disclose too much, but kind of just give us a little overview about how you were raised. Were your parents first generation American? Are they from Mexico? Are they from here?
Third generation. We're third generation. Yeah.
Okay.
So my parents both speak Spanish and English. Um, my father was born in Los Angeles. He grew up in El Monte. That's where he met my mom. Um, so and then my grandparents uh, were born in the U.S. and then my great grandparents on my dad's side, they were born in Mexico. So yeah, so I'm a watered down Mexican. So
There's
hey.
nothing wrong with that. And you grew up in LA and in the Las Vegas area as well.
Right. So I
Nice.
grew up in I grew up in the Harbor area, Wilmington. When I was younger, I lived in San Pedro also. I lived in Gardena when I was a young kid, and then at the age of back and forth my whole life. We always been back and forth to Las Vegas, but honestly, most of my life I've been in Las Vegas.
And
So
and when you got arrested and you got the 18 years, right? Or 200 and something months. What were the charges? What led up to it? How did you get there and find yourself in that situation?
so I was involved in drug trafficking. Um, So I started selling drugs when I was about 16 years old. I got arrested when I was 26, so I had like a 10-year run. I got arrested for conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute 110 pounds of cocaine and possession with intent to distribute. So that's 50 kilos of cocaine. So I was trying to trade. I had $2 million worth of stolen artwork that belonged to Las Vegas entertainer Wayne Newton. and I tried to trade it for 50 kilos of cocaine, and I was sentenced to 235 months for a
Wow.
first-time nonviolent drug offense. Yeah.
And this stuff was stolen from Wayne Newton's home, or it was like,
Well, how about
yeah,
this? How about we let them read the book if they
there
want to
you
know
go.
that?
There you go.
Hey,
So
like Snoop Dogg said, the game is to be stolen, not known.
so those of you that are interested in hearing more about Ray's story and picking up his book, Ray, I've dropped up the link on the comment section on the bottom here where they can find your book. And but if you can go ahead and tell us now where they can find it, the title of it, and all that good stuff.
So the title of it is called "The Chauffeur: From Federal Prison to Celebrity Chauffeur: A True Life Tale About Second Chances." It's my autobiography. Uh, I'll give you a little synopsis about it. Growing up in the streets, kicked out when I was 16 years old, getting involved in gangbanging and drug trafficking, and how it escalated, and how I transitioned to Las Vegas, and I started working with some pretty big people in Mexico. And then how it all came crashing down on my arrest, and then the transition as far as being a different person, looking at life in a whole different way, and how I became a successful VIP and celebrity chauffeur, where I transport some of the richest people in the world, and it's definitely a blessing. You can get it on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Nobles. If you Google Raymond Torres, the chauffeur, it'll come up, and you can purchase it. And part of the proceeds, I'll let you cut in on that one, Julian. Some of the proceeds go to Real Talk. If you want to follow up on
Yeah,
that.
so if you guys can go through Amazon Smiles when you're shopping for the book, look up Real Talk Youth Impact Program. If you're out in Nevada, look up the Las Vegas chapter. If you're out in Texas, anywhere else, look up Real Talk Youth Impact Program EP. And then you purchase the book, and then part of that purchase comes back to the kids at Real Talk. So you're helping two causes at one time. Now, Ray, how long did it take you to write this book? What inspired you to write it? And then what made you want to do it and put your business out there?
Well, the I was incarcerated. I was working with kids already, something I had mentioned before, and so I wanted to. I always kept a journal in prison, and then when we took the drug treatment program, they make you write a journal. Kind of like a chronological journal about your life. So I started writing it, and then I kept writing it after I finished the program. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is so I would read through it every once in a while. I would add things, and then so I talking to these kids, I seen how effective it was in the prison system. So it crossed my mind, how can I share my story among people, whoever wants to read it, whoever's interested? How can I change lives instead of just speaking in front of a small group? So I decided to write a book. And I says, well, this could go worldwide. I could help people out. I did it because, people that are living that same lifestyle, that are straddling the fence, that maybe this will, maybe it'll open up their eyes and show them the effects that, the harsh realities of what you go through when you're making bad choices. So I had my journal already when I got released in April 2011. I had my journal and all my notes and everything. So when I got a job in a luxury transportation company, there was a lot of downtime. So when you're on a work detail, sometimes you're sitting for 5 hours, 10 hours, and a client has you, and they may have you for a whole week. So I would bring my laptop to work, I would bring my notes, and I would just start writing and writing and writing. It took me 4 years to put it together. And
Wow.
so once I had an editor go through it, and then I submitted it for publication. And it's I won an award, International Latino Book Award. I'm actually getting ready to revamp the whole book, the cover, because I have a documentary that I'm working on. I'm going to be releasing, so I'm just trying to get the whole package together, and possibly talks about putting a movie together. So let's see what
Nice.
happens.
Well, congratulations on all of that, and thanks for being a part of Real Talk, doing what you're doing. I've been over there twice. I think one of the times you spoke, or I think twice you spoke, and your story is very impactful. These kids listen when you speak, and what you had to share is very deep. So, for those of you that want to keep getting information on Ray, all his stuff's here on the bottom. You can find him at King Towers Entertainment on YouTube. where he has some videos as well. He also has some chauffeur videos of himself as he's going to pick people up, and he has some pretty good stuff on there. Where are you going with that show, Ray, that you're uploading from time to time?
So that's a documentary that I'm working on, VIP Chauffeur. So it's something I want to eventually submit to Netflix or another network. So that's something I'm working on. And then of course I'm going to do a documentary about the book. That's a separate one, or it might be a 4-part series with the VIP Chauffeur, the growing up as a troubled youth, and then there's a few things that I'm still juggling right now to see which way I'm going to go with it. But it might be a 4-part series documentary if I end up doing it that way.
Nice, nice. So now that we got you on here, we're gonna do another series. We're gonna have Gordon, myself, and Ray here, and we're gonna get into some more real topics, and more issues, and we bring Rogelio back as well. We all work together with Real Talk, and we all just want to keep doing what we're doing, spreading the word and sharing our stories in hopes that it could change somebody's life. I always get asked, why do you share, or why are y'all doing that? Um, and it, in all sincerity, it's so that someone can hear it and connect with it, and maybe change direction in their life, and just make the world a better place through everything we've been through, all the ugly, all the good, and just put it out there so people can listen, and a lot of men that are doing what we used to do, living that lifestyle. I know it's hard for them to talk about things that you're going. Man, there's so much to the underworld that I think can be fixed with psychiatry and psychology, right? We go around and we're traumatized. We go through traumatizing experiences. We cause harm to others. Others cause harm to us. All while we're in the streets and we don't have anyone to talk to, and it's not cool to talk about it. Full disclosure, we had done some stuff one day, and it popped my cherry for that activity, and I was messed up for about a week, and I didn't know how to process what I was feeling and what I was going through, and then I couldn't talk to anybody about it because how you gonna come to your homeboys and be like, I just did some ruthless stuff last weekend, and I can't sleep for a week. What's going on? What's happening?
Right.
So then what ends up happening is it festers inside of you, and then you just start doing drugs and start doing more stuff to forget about that last thing, right? But then you're doing another thing, and then that's causing more trauma. So it's hard to deal with that lifestyle and everything that comes with it. For those of you that aren't involved in that lifestyle and never have stepped foot in it, and what you see on the movies is just the top layer of what really happens, because this is what's affecting our community right now. This is what's affecting our kids, is all this secondary trauma that they see: people getting shot, people getting jumped, people getting robbed, people getting mugged, and it affects them, and then they end up becoming the aggressor later. And so these are all the kinds of topics we're going to be getting into. I wanted to give Raymond an opportunity today to kind of introduce himself. You guys get a feel for what kind of person he is, what brings him to Real Talk, what made him write his book. Check out his book. I read some of it last night. Very, very interesting. I mean, just like he said, out the gate, stolen art with Wayne Newton, cocaine, 18 years in prison, the street life. All of this is in this book. Very good story. Check it out on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. I read the Barnes and Noble review. It's very good. Follow him on IG and on Facebook at Raymond Torres LV, like Las Vegas, and then on YouTube at King Towers Entertainment. And you can purchase this book once again on Amazon. Ray, any last words you want to leave anybody that's listening to? Any words of encouragement, positivity, words of wisdom? Anything you want to say? You got about 3 minutes. Go ahead and just.
Yeah. I just want to say, those who are raising kids, and I know it's not easy. I mentioned before, fathers, single mothers, even co-parenting. Spend time with your kids. Listen to them. Don't just talk. to them, but genuinely listen to them because we're molding our future. Like I always say this: the apple don't fall too far from the tree.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to check ourselves. We got to check ourselves to see what we're doing because the kids are not listening to us verbally. They're watching us. They're watching what we do. And I think if we sit down and we actually listen to them to see what they have to say, and yeah, kids are going to act up, and sometimes they have their own ways, and yes, they need discipline at times. But sometimes the parents need discipline at times. Sometimes we get a little crazy too. So,
Yes.
and I think the thing is that we're not promised tomorrow. So if you have kids in your life, kids love your parents. They're not promised tomorrow. When
Yeah.
you lose a parent, especially if you're incarcerated, when you lose a parent, you don't think about. Well, it depends on. Let me rephrase it. It depends on how they treated you, though. I didn't think about the bad times that me and my father went through. I thought about losing him as a person. So, if you got an opportunity to spend time with your family members, your loved ones, tell them you express to them that you care about them, that you love them, and but most of all, show it and communicate. And I think that'll open up doors to a better relationship.
Nice. Yeah, because that's what it's about is relationships, honesty,
Mm-hmm.
truth, and communication. I think is a key part to having a successful family unit, having a
Right.
successful relationship with anyone, but most importantly with your wife and kids, right? Because that's our
Absolutely.
first immediate. Raymond, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you being on today, sharing with us, and just opening up and talking about this. Our next topic is going to be good. We're going to have Gordon and hopefully Rogelio on with us, and we're all going to
Nice.
come up with a good topic to really go in and just bring light to ex inmates, people coming back into the streets. If you have family member out there that's incarcerated, you just heard what Raymond said, and take part of his story. And if you know someone that's in there and they're having a hard time getting to their kids, and you're a relative, you're an aunt, you're a cousin, and you can make it happen, step up. It takes a village, man. Make that work. Mend those relationships. Once again, Ray talked about his first offense. He got 20 years, mandatory minimums. You guys check out FAMM, Families Against Mandatory Minimums. That crime bill that was written in 93, 94, this instituted these mandatory minimums, a point system that is very unfair, very unjust in our supposed justice system. So let's check that out, FAMM.org, Families Against Mandatory Minimums. If you guys know someone that's incarcerated, a female, a male, they need help seeing their kids, establishing that relationship, and you're aware of this, and you can make a difference, step in, intervene, and let's start mending these relationships. There's 2.2 million Americans incarcerated, you guys. There's so many fatherless and motherless kids out here on these streets. Let's step our game up as a community. Raymond and I were talking the other day about putting something together for Christmas for inmates, and we'll have more on that coming towards August, where we're gonna really try to put something together to help the families of inmates that are incarcerated, and getting them together with Angel Tree. That's the name of the organization, Raymond.
Angel Tree. Yeah.
And what they do is they take families of the incarcerated and they send them Christmas gifts, and make Christmas special for those kids that are without their parents, those parents that are behind bars. And as Raymond was talking about it, I'm like, you know what? I used that program one time out of Kansas. I was locked up in Kansas State, and they actually sent my son a gift. So, yeah, no better way to give back. Stay tuned for that. And as always, I'll leave you guys with my 3 sayings. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Be kind to one another. 2, pray
Amen.
for our country. Pray for our children right now. There is a war going on out there with our kids. And you guys, the purest thing on this earth is a child. That's the purest thing that you'll find on this earth is a baby. And when you come after that, you're coming after something that is pure and untouched. We need to protect our children from all these things going on. So pray for our country, pray for our children. And as always, like Raymond said, and I always say, love your children. That doesn't mean go and buy them Jordans and Xbox and PlayStation and McDonald's. It means give them discipline, give them structure, guide them in their way, and give them the tools that they need to be successful young men, young women, and allow them to hate you at times because you're doing your job. That means that you're loving them.
Right.
That,
That's
that's what
right.
that's what I mean when I say show your kids you love them. Allow them to be upset with you. That means you're doing your job. You hate your boss at work. Why? Because they're telling you what to do, and you know they're right, but you don't want to do it. Same thing with our
Mm.
kids. Allow them to hate you. It's okay. It's okay. Just don't stop loving them. Raymond, thank you for being on. Thank y'all for
Thank
tuning
you for
in.
having me, Jordan.
Real talk, real topics, y'all. Stay tuned for the next one. Have a good one.